These pictures show Gus Lamont's grandmother, Josie Murray, at the Peterborough Police Station, 250 kilometres north of Adelaide. Police say they made the arrest after returning to Oak Park Station to search for evidence connected to the missing 4-year-old. It's understood the 75-year-old has been charged with firearm offences, but...
Did you notice when the one grandparent made an appearance in court, several media were right there waiting for them? Meanwhile, media were also at the station recording the other grandparent chaperoning the cops around the property. Do you think this was an accident, a coincidence, or by design?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Police are expected to continue searching the property on Tuesday. A hearing on the firearms charges will be held at the Peterborough Magistrates Court in May.
In this analysis, I'm going to talk about the results of that search. There's some very interesting developments in terms of where they searched, how they searched, what tools they searched. But to come back to the original question, I think it's fairly certain the police called the media because the media play an important role in exerting pressure. They actually a tool that is in the arsenal of the police, whether if they elect to use it or not. And I'm sure that the police are hoping overnight the grandparents watch themselves and each other, perhaps online, and possibly one interrogated the other on what was said, where did the police look, what did they communicate. And I do think separating the grandparents was a masterstroke. But will it really lead to any real results during Tuesday's search? Well, it does look like specially trained cadaver dogs have been brought to the scene. Look at this headline from 7 News, published just half an hour ago at the time of writing. Gus Lamont, police shift focus to second homestead in South Australia outback. Here it is. Specially trained cadaver dogs have been brought in for Tuesday's search. Now, they say cadaver dogs plural, but in terms of the photos that we see, we only really see one. So perhaps there are additional animals that they've simply not been captured on camera. Now, interestingly, a second homestead is also being searched, which on the surface suggests that the police don't believe there's any evidence at the main homestead.
South Australian Police have launched a new search for missing 4-year-old boy Gus Lamont. Officers will spend 2 days looking for evidence at Oak Street Station in the state's northeast after a person living at the property was identified as a suspect. Gus has been missing since September last year.
Well, her saying Oak Street Station makes me feel less bad about saying North South Wales. Anyway, by the way, that is actually where the cadaver dogs actually come from. New South Wales. In this analysis, I want to deal with the breakthrough that took place in mid-January that led to the announcement of a suspect, more specifically, what was going on behind the scenes that could have led to this breakthrough. And I think you're going to find this really interesting. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, according to my stats, something like 80% of you are not subscribed. So if you're finding this analysis interesting, this narrative interesting, these developments interesting, please make sure you are subscribed. If you're finding the work that I've been doing worthwhile and you want to show your appreciation, you can hit the thanks button. I'm not going to stop you. And let's get started. So number one, illegal firearm. In order to answer the question of what happened in mid-January, I think we get some insight into what has just happened now. And here I'm referring to that firearms charge. Now, someone related to Gus called the police and complained about an illegal firearm, which I'm told is a sawed-off shotgun. And have a look at this. Sawed-off shotguns are generally illegal in Australia for private citizens. Modifying a shotgun to shorten the barrel length is prohibited as it alters the firearms category, and such weapons are considered strictly controlled or prohibited under state laws. Possession often carries severe penalties, including potential imprisonment. Does anyone remember this scene from season 4, episode 8? It's around about an hour into that, where Nancy saws off part of a shotgun and says the following. The question is, who knew about this firearm? Well, it could only be someone who has or had lived on the property or visited the property, and also someone who has it in for one of the grandparents. Number 2, child services. The drama that played out in mid-January, I'm told, was related to concern for Ronnie, that 3 months after Gus's disappearance at the station, there was still another little boy, even younger, staying on the same property, and wasn't his life or safety potentially in danger as well? Bear in mind, you have a situation where nothing is happening, nothing is changing, and you've got another little boy in the same kind of situation. Isn't that really an untenable situation as well for someone who's looking on from the outside, I guess? And we saw this in the Summer Wells case. Summer vanished, and sometime later, child services came and removed the remaining children. In this case, it's possible child services arrived of their own volition, or someone called them. Was it the same person who informed the police about the sawed-off shotgun, assuming that is true? If it is true, it appears this call is what really set the cat between the pigeons, because this may have led to Jessie leaving the property and moving into a home in Adelaide. Now, it also led to, it appears, at least one of the grandparents no longer cooperating with the investigation. That was the side effect, that was the consequence of that particular intervention. Now, again, who would want Jessie and Ronnie off the property? Probably not either of her parents. And although it's not clear whether Jessie wanted to remain there, she did seem to remain there for months and only moved after these apparent reporting incidents, that's plural, that's 2 of them so far, occurred. So who was the reporting party? And that brings us to a third reporting incident, and that was to Safework, South Australia. Besides the call to child services, apparently, as I say, there was a call to Safework, South Australia on the same day as well. Have you ever heard of it? Safework SA is responsible for providing work, health and safety, public safety, and state-based industrial relations services across South Australia. They are a regulator. The inspectors ensure work health and safety, and public safety standards are met. Now remember, I've been pointing out several hazardous construction areas around the homestead, and I see some of you really scoffed at that. But again, remember, there's a 1-year-old child that until recently was staying there, again in the context of another child that has apparently gone missing or even died on or near that property in mysterious circumstances. And so isn't there a duty of care towards needed here in terms of that other child? Now, as far as I know, one of the mandates of safe work would be to make sure those construction areas are cordoned off and made safe. I'd love to see some drone footage that confirms that. Now, it's not clear whether that neon yellow sign that I mentioned, the speed limit sign, which is right beside the homestead, you can actually see the tower behind it, behind that sign. And we know that that same tower is part of the homestead. Was that originally in place, or was that WorkSafe's doing? It does look awfully new, doesn't it? Now, in my opinion, whether external pressure has been brought to bear or not in this case, and despite the fact that the pressure has ramped up of late, I don't think we are going to see a proper breakthrough without the discovery of a body. And that crucial discovery needs to be made now. And now, have a look at this from the nightly. Gus Lamont, South Australia Police inspect outhouse and water tank in new search for missing 4-year-old. According to this article, South Australian Police have inspected an outhouse with freshly laid cement and a water tank as part of the latest search for missing 4-year-old Gus Lamont in the state's mid-north. Detectives are nearing the end of a 2-day operation, but with no evidence located so far. Incidentally, we saw a similar situation in the Barry Morphew case, where investigators actually dug up, excavated a construction site Barry Morphew was working on at the time.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Today, police searched a new location in connection in the disappearance of a missing woman in Chaffee County. We were over the scene after investigators searched a property under construction there. You can see a chunk of cement has been removed from the foundation. After another day of searching, police say they have not located Suzanne Morphew.
Now, I would hope the Australians are going to do some digging and not just pass over these sites willy-nilly. Anyway, in terms of the Morphew case, although they searched extensively through these construction sites, they didn't actually find anything. Ultimately, Suzanne was found in an open field. Now, according to the Nightly, on the second day, Task Force Horizon officers turned their attention to a neighboring property owned by Gus's family about 30 kilometers west of Oak Park Station, where the boy vanished almost 5 months ago. Officers scoured a remote section of Sheep Station, examined a water tank, and inspected an outhouse where fresh cement had recently been poured. Remember, before Josie Murray was a sheep farmer, the job that this person did was like a bricklayer and in construction. And so that would be something that this person would know something about. Now, a cadaver dog trained to detect human remains was also brought in from New South Wales to assist the search. Here it is a singular. So I'm not sure if there's one dog or more than one. I think it makes sense to bring more than one dog to this sort of situation. Anyway, police later moved to a property at Grampus, about 24 kilometers from Oak Park, where major crime detectives were seen combing through the yard and homestead. No evidence connected to Gus's disappearance was found at either location. Quite disappointing. There is, of course, at least one additional location that still needs to be searched, and to their credit, investigators headed to the Pualco Range Conservation Park that is south of Uinta as part of the coordinated search effort as well. According to the Nightly, early in the day, this is Tuesday, a police helicopter left Peterborough Aerodrome bound for the Pualco Range Conservation Park. The operation is expected to conclude today, and 7 News understands officers will maintain a presence in the area. Now, I'm not sure if that area includes Oak Park Station or basically just Uinta in general. Meanwhile, the search for Gus continues. Anyway, I'm not going to take it further than that, but the breakthrough that is needed now is to find this little boy's remains. Do you think they will, or do you think it's a lost cause? Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.